Well, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to look out and see all the faces that have been involved in this project over the last couple of years. I can't believe behind me is actually a slide that indicates D2P, and I thought I'd just take a minute or two and give you a little history before I recognize a few people and move on to introducing the Chancellor and some of our other wonderful remark makers this afternoon. This whole project started about 2.5 years ago. And it was in response to a conversation Carl Gulbranson and I had at the WARF Technology Transfer Group. We have an extraordinarily innovative group of faculty and staff and create an enormous amount of intellectual property. But we don't do much with that with respect to starting new commercial enterprises. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen. We have some wonderfully innovative faculty and staff, and we do pursue those endpoints, but we don't purposefully as an organization reach in and try and cultivate that process to our greater benefit and the greater benefit of the state of Wisconsin. D2P does that. That's the focus. That was the attention. Now, the details took us 2.5 years to work out, and we're finally there. We've got the organization ready. The impact of something like this is unquestionably enormous. There's very few institutions that have our capabilities. Very few institutions are embedded in a state like ours with an enthusiasm for this kind of activity. And just the people here today are exemplars of that activity. So I can't tell you how enthusiastic and happy I am that we've got this thing off. Let me just mention a few people. As you learn the organizational structure, and you'll hear about that when Mark Cook gets an opportunity to speak to you, but Mark has agreed in a moment of weakness to be chair of our advisory board, and this is going to be an absolutely critical activity in the first 6 months of the run-up to this, because that'll show leadership for the organization, populate the people in the organization, and serve to set the future directions. So you'll hear from Mark directly in a minute, but let me introduce a few of the other members of the advisory board. We have, where's Mark's here? Maybe you could stand up, Mark. All right, Lee Kagan. I was chatting with Lee earlier. There's Lee right there. And Lee was an instrumental partner of ours in getting this done. Lee, of course, is from WARF. We have Fred Robertson, and you can't miss Fred. His arm is longer than my head. And Paul Shane, who can't make it today, but he'll be here, that's for sure. And there's a few other, pardon me? Brian Fox. I rode over in the car with Brian. Where's Brian? There we are. Nice to have you. So then we have a few other people that are critical to this operation. Martin Cadwallader, who is our Vice Chancellor for Research, and D2P will in fact report to Martin, and Martin will take direct responsibility for institutional oversight of the foundation activities. There are a couple regions, and in fact the nice part about the regions tonight, they're my two favorite regions. Regina, where are you? There you are, Regina Milner and Tracy Hybar. Both of whom have an extraordinary track record and interest in technology transfer and the economic development of this institution. So I really want to express that. Now, the final thing about this is this was a partnership between WARF and campus. And it was a real partnership. We share equally in the intellectual effort, and we share equally in the assets that are going to be needed to make this happen. We've invested not an insignificant amount of money over the next 3 years to help make this happen. The nice part about it is this was recognized by University of Wisconsin system by the awarding of the so-called Igniter grant. In a moment of weakness, Mark and I must have had one beer too many and developed the idea of an Igniter grant. But really, Igniter is the right kind of word. And as you'll learn, the Igniter capability will what is going to help make D2P happen, and it's critical. We have a lot of activity already. And this is one of the issues. This is probably I'm missing 2 or 3, but these are kind of activities that are already in place on campus, but they're not collectively focused on this process. They're not harnessed in a completely comprehensive manner. This will help to bring the focus of these various capabilities onto the whole technology transfer process. What we're interested in is getting our technology commercialized and de-risked so it is attractive to continued development or a buyout or other terminal event to make it really go forward. But we're not the only people. These are other partners that exist here in Wisconsin, and I'm sure that I've missed several of these. But for when people say there's no interest in economic development and startup and the commercialization of truly innovative discoveries in the state of Wisconsin, they're completely wrong. And our purpose will be to demonstrate that that's not the case and that we are well positioned to really have a national impact, not just a local or even regional impact. So let me stop yakking away here because I think we have a number of wonderful remarks, and we're going to key off with our Chancellor, Rebecca Blank, who recently joined us and obviously is intensely interested in this activity. Becky?
Thank you very much, Paul. I am delighted to be here today, and it's very exciting to be part of the announcement of the launch of this partnership, the D2P program. In my jobs at the Department of Commerce in the last few years, I've spent a lot of time speaking with and listening to university leaders, community leaders, people who run community incubators, state and local regional economic development leaders, and others about the importance of effective tech transfer. And when I was interviewing with the search committee, one of the things I said I really wanted to work with on campus was to find ways to up the activity around tech transfer, to think about ways that were unique and specific and doable within the University of Wisconsin and the state of Wisconsin context that would allow us to do an even better job of linking the university into the community on this front. So I was incredibly delighted upon arriving to learn that you folks were way ahead of me, and that people had been planning this whole Discovery to Product program over the past year, had put proposals together, had a real outline that developed over the summer and fall, and it's an outline that I'm actually very excited about. So thanks to Paul and to Mark Cook here on campus, thanks to Carl Gabranson and his staff at WARF, and all the key faculty and staff members from all around the region who've been involved in working on the design of this program, and which is culminating in today's announcement. Paul said to me today, thank goodness we've gotten there. I said, no, we haven't gotten there. We just started, right? We're just announcing it today. But it's an important first step. So I'm delighted with this idea, and I must say I pledge my full support to make D2P an effective and a successful program. At the University of Wisconsin-Madison, we want this to be the ideas factory that's going to help attract high-tech businesses into Wisconsin and into the United States, driving innovation and productivity. Now, there's quite a research literature on the role of productivity and economic growth, and it's a research literature I paid a lot of attention to. It turns out that the good studies here suggest that about 2/3 of the economic growth in this country since World War II is directly due to innovation, either increases in productivity or increases in, or the development of new products that in turn create new markets. And that suggests, given the importance of innovation to economic growth historically, that future economic growth is going to depend very heavily on places like the University of Wisconsin continuing to do both the basic and the applied work that will open up new scientific and new commercial frontiers. The presence, of course, of the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, WARF, has allowed UW Madison to be a leader in innovation and invention, and I want to publicly recognize the importance of that partnership. WARF helps faculty and staff patent and commercialize their discoveries. It's advanced some 6,000 discoveries from UW Madison inventors, obtained 1,900 U.S. patents on those inventions, and completed more than 1,600 licensing agreements with companies all over the world. WARF is a key funder of D2P and a key partner in all of this. I also want to thank the state of Wisconsin, which allocated money to the UW system to enhance economic development, and a competition that they held among all of the different parts of the system to present proposals for using that money. We were fortunate enough to be one of the winners of one of those proposals, and we just learned 2 weeks ago that D2P is going to receive some of that funding. So, I'm delighted that the state is also a real partner in all of this. Some technological innovations from our faculty are very readily attractive to existing companies, and we work with them to go through the patenting and the licensing activities working with WARF. But there are a lot of other opportunities that fail to get traction because it's not quite obvious that they have commercial applications. The faculty member may not be looking for that. There may not be a company that's particularly scanning what's happening in that lab. D2P is designed to support our faculty, our staff, and our students to move them from core ideas into product experimentation, to link them with people, with businesses, with outside entrepreneurs, with venture capitalists who can help them develop those ideas for commercial use. In turn, these startups will help create jobs and improve our state and our region's economy. Now, I will say what I've said to a number of people. D2P is not a slam dunk success. There are a whole bunch of risks here, and I promise you, we could list at great length the number of universities that have announced tech transfer programs, and if you came back 5 to 10 years later, not very much had come of them. I'm very excited about the ideas that are embedded in D2P. I think it's a creative way to go. It's something that I've not seen other universities try, but tech transfer is hard. Many universities have worked at this and not succeeded. We think we have the right idea and the right time and the level of funding that we need to launch this. But like all entrepreneurial ventures, there is a risk to this, and we're going to count on all of you to work with us to make sure that this risk blossoms into a successful program. So thanks to everyone who has worked to design and fund the program. I am looking forward to seeing D2P roll out, to seeing us move towards hiring someone to run this, and to really see this unfold over the next several years. It's really going to be an exciting part of what we're doing here on campus. So thank you all for being here today, and I'll turn things back to Paul.
This is a wonderful chance for me to introduce a very good friend of mine, Carl Gulbranson. None of you would necessarily know all the details, but I bring the very oddest request to Carl.
You know, I do want to thank Paul. Paul and I were teenagers when this started. I mean, it seems like it was that long ago, right? Yeah, he had hair, and mine was brown. It was his perseverance, and then when Lee Kagan, who was WARF's technology commercialization officer, joined, I saw that I didn't have the strength of the stamina to get through this, so I handed it off to Lee, and he worked with Paul, and the two of them really pulled the water on this to get it up to the point where Mark came along, and he really got enthused with it, and it's that kind of enthusiasm that really carried this on. So there are a lot of players in this. A lot of people will be thankful, too, that we've got to this point. But as Chancellor Blank says, we're just launching it. We've got a long ways to go. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about why WARF is really interested in this. WARF's mission is to support research at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And the way we do that, principally, besides wisely invest our dollars, is commercialize the technology and hopefully bring some revenue back to fund further research. And it wasn't that long ago that we could fairly easily license technology out of the university, ongoing concern, like a pharmaceutical company. In fact, you know, our part of our greatest revenues come from pharmaceuticals, and the more important one right now is expiring at the end of this year. Well, I can say today it's very difficult to license something right out of the lab bench into an ongoing concern, whether it's a pharmaceutical company or an information technology company. Any large company today has decided that they want small companies to take the technology and take the risk away for them. And once it's been proven by a small company, then they'll either buy that company or they'll license it from them. But they aren't going to license it out of the university and take the big investment in de-risking the technology. So all of a sudden, I'd say all of a sudden, certainly in the last 15 years, starting companies has been the principal way that we can get technology to the marketplace and get used to improve lives. And that's a struggle. But it is hard to start companies, and you watch these companies struggle because they don't have the right kind of knowledge base to begin with. So part of what we're excited about here is to build a team and to build an organization that can help connect all of the various services that are both on campus and off campus, but also bring some experienced people in to help guide these companies and hopefully make them, provide them a better start so that they'll be greater success, and we can get this technology to the marketplace sooner to improve lives, which is what we want to do. The other thing that's important about this, Paul mentioned that it's going to be out there trying to prospect and find technology earlier and get it into the hopper so that we can get it out into the marketplace. For us, that's also critically important. This is a big campus. We have a relatively small staff compared to the campus to prospect for technologies. We have a lot of graduate students that we call ambassadors. We hire 20 of them each year to go out and do some prospecting for us, but it's still a big campus. And what's really critical about this is we have a new patent law. We no longer file patents. We no longer are what's called a first to invent regime. We are now a first to file regime, which means that we have to get to the patent office as soon as we can. So we can't let technologies just incubate and be satisfied that we'll get to the patent office in time. Somebody else may beat us there. So it's important to us to be out in the ranks, seeing what's happening. And I can tell you that technology transfer and patenting, this is a personal business. You have to meet people, you have to talk to them, you have to know what's going on. So that's very critical too. And then the third part of it is the staff that hopefully we put together. These have to be high caliber, top people. And we want some mentors and residents that are going to have been there, done that, have the scars, can give the kind of advice and good assistance to our entrepreneurs that want to start companies. So for WARF, this is a big deal. It's very important to us. The trustees have been very enthusiastic about it. They have been patient too, but probably not as patient as Paul and I have been. They wanted this to happen yesterday. So they're happy to see this go forward, and we're really excited about it. Glad to see everybody here. So thanks.
Thank you, Carl. And I'm hoping by now you're curious about some specificity associated with what D2P will look like. What exactly will it do? How will it do it? Where will be the impact points? How is it going to function on a day-to-day basis? Well, that was a problem we were concerned with, and I found the answer to that, and that answer is Mark Cook. Mark and I got to know each other in some detail when he was chair of the university committee, or actually before he became chair and then chair of the university committee. And I said, Mark, this can't be all of our lives. There has to be something more amusing than this. And I said, I have just the thing that you might be interested in. It's called D2P. And he and I were on a couple adventures down in Virginia, which turned out quite well, as I recall. We did very well on that. And I said, this is exactly the kind of thing you need to become part of. And he agreed to chair the advisory committee. So I will stop there. And Mark, it's yours.
While I was the chair of the university committee, I don't know if you noticed, Paul, but I kept having you come in and present it about every 3 months. I just wanted, Paul always uses the term socializing something, and it was very important that the campus was on board and the governance structure was as well. We have a new logo, but I'm real excited about those 3 colors right there. And I kind of redid this. Dick Burgess kind of pulled me to the side last night. We were showing this to a new group called ACE, and you'll hear about that in a minute. And he says, you got to make your pictures bigger. And so I went back to those 3 colors because I think they really represent something. And Mari says she did that on purpose. Where blue is blue sky, so discovery, and I'll try to keep that going through. Green is to grow, that's the nurturing part. And then product is a red hot kick out, something that we're going to actually turn into money eventually. So I'm going to kind of keep those themes as we roll along. Well, you've already heard that we have a $1 billion research enterprise on this campus. And out of that $1 billion research enterprise, I think last year we had about 350 invention disclosures to WARF. Those turned into 200 patent applications. That turned into about 50 new licensees. This is not total licenses, but new licensee agreements. I think that's the number was 55 last year. And WARF has been involved in an accelerator program which selects certain technologies that fit in certain areas that have begun to spin out companies. But UW-Madison and WARF has identified, as has been mentioned, that there are still gaps and there's still opportunities and lots of opportunities to grow this and to convert this $1 billion into more Wisconsin companies. Y'all remember this show, right? It's somewhere in those boxes. And so what are we missing? What is still laying around that's not being converted, that's really the next major discovery? And we believe that it's there. And so I'm going to try to give you some images. I'm a picture guy, and perhaps some of the images will kind of explain why the leadership really thought that we needed to develop additional technology transfer vehicles. And I was hoping there would be a pointer up here, so if you give me a second. So we look at it in kind of a two-funnel approach. We have the WARF funnel, which has been historically a wonderful means by which we can transfer technologies. And a lot of that results in licensees. In some cases, particularly with the new accelerator program, we have the opportunity to kick out additional companies or dramatically improve the value of some of those licensees. Faculty are still starting companies, and I call this the inventor-initiated type process. But the problem that was identified is that you almost need a person to be an inventor and an entrepreneur together. And if you have an inventor and an entrepreneur together in the same body, then you have a chance of a company launch. But the problem is finding resources on campus. We do have some graduate school resources. These are primarily to advance a technology, particularly if it's a patented technology. But there's a lot of innovation. Some of it could be trade secrets. Some of it could be copyright, software. None of this actually falls within the patent area. And so we really need to figure out how to move this technology into the startup realm. And what's happening is it's occurring too quickly. So if you don't incubate it using the resources we have on campus, and you can't find cash to really develop it on campus because there is no cash to develop it, then you kick it out, you start a company, maybe hoping to get SBIR funding or venture funding, or usually angel funding at that start. If you're lucky, it's usually your back pocket money and your mom and dad and your cousins and everybody else. And then you start figuring out what the company structure is. What is the legal, regulatory, business? Well, that greatly extends the time period by which this company can actually develop and grow. So D2P is going to start digging around in those boxes. And it's going to start looking for this innovation, just as Carl was talking about. And so it's about finding and transferring these hidden treasures that are on campus. And some of them will be more obvious, but I think some of them will take a lot of change in the culture of campus and how people look at their inventions. So D2P is a shepherd. Basically, I'm an animal scientist. So it's somebody that's going to shepherd this process. And it involves scouting out that blue sky, connecting and incubating or growing those technologies, and getting that technology launched into a great hot product, whether it's a new startup, a new license, or a license to a Wisconsin company or to one of the WARF licensees. So here's what D2P, I'm getting picked on by my funnel here, but think of it this way, like when Popeye used to eat his spinach and you could see it going down his esophagus and bulging up. Okay, this is D2P. We're trying to trap this in the esophagus or in the neck of the funnel. So D2P wants to find these technologies, this blue sky, and begin that growth period, the green period of incubation, using the available resources that we have on campus, connecting with the outside world. WARF is going to be very important. Figuring out regulatory, market pathways, business structures, and pulling all of this in that we have developed into this process of nurturing this technology before it actually turns into a company and doesn't get kicked out too quickly. And so that's the whole point. Here is the critical part, which is the resources. And this is why that Economic Development Incentive Grant was very, very important to us. And this is the area that we'll continue to work on as the advisory committee to help look for ways to continue to fund this process. So let me give you an example of what I consider a high-tech type of activity that would occur. So this is a very complex slide, but it all deals with money. So D2P, maybe talking to some of the outside venture or angel groups, will identify an innovation. Maybe it's in the WARF patent portfolio, maybe it's in the D2P patent portfolio, which means it wasn't a patentable technology, or it's pre-patent. So the investigator hasn't even thought, I didn't even know this was patentable. And they'll identify an innovative technology. We'll have the resources to go in and begin to work with that. One of the first things we need to do is buy out the time of the faculty member. And in this case, I show an example with a faculty member and get them committed to working with us to advance this innovation. We need to bring in very skilled innovators. These are probably postdocs in the case of a tech or something in medical devices or some of the biology areas. It could be a programmer in some of the other areas. And provide research support, even external consulting. Maybe we need to know what the regulatory pathway is to move this forward before we spend a lot of time doing research. Maybe it's going to be so complex we need to kill this technology and go on to the next one. So we can incubate it and grow it using all of our resources, both internal resources and perhaps even some of the external resources can fit into this. And we also will have educational components as well as even maybe tap some of the resources in Martin's shop. Maybe we'll even go back to Carl's shop and say we need some additional resources. And we've identified some potential other sources as well as we go forward. And we want to link in the business school, Francois' group, we've been talking to them about linking some of our alumni to this process as well. And we're going to be exploring that. So the goal of D2P is enable UW Madison and WARF to create, grow IP that benefits the world, is valued by society, and creates jobs for Wisconsin. And we have a very complex mission statement, and I really just cut it down to the key words, which is to cultivate entrepreneurship on this campus. Rock Mackey's been talking about this. We need to have every department on campus talking about entrepreneurship in their programs, whether it's undergraduates or graduate students. Last week we had the guy who did the California Condor Project giving a lecture in his room. He's a graduate of here. He's with the San Diego Zoo. He was the one that redid the California Condor in the United States the last 30 years. And he said San Diego Zoo is doing the exact same thing. He says they've got a very aggressive entrepreneurship program going on with zoo animals and trying to figure out new innovations that could be created. So we want to cultivate that on this campus, secure the intellectual property, accelerate these innovations in a transfer vehicle off campus, create a sense of urgency. We don't want to just wait and wait and wait. We want it done now. And so this team will be able to help the faculty and help move this quickly. Leverage these internal and external resources. And if we do 1 through 5, I think we'll be successful and we won't keep complaining about how everybody flies over Madison. They'll start landing if we start giving them really good technologies that they see are valuable. So expand investment capital in entrepreneurial talent, and that expansion will be through attraction, maybe more than promotion. And improve UW and WARF's long-term relationship, and we're going to do that by having a lot of fun. So D2P expert team will champion this innovation in IP protection. It will be the go-to, connect innovators to commercialization resources, and it will act as a trusted advisor to UW innovators. And so UW innovators will be looking to D2P and its leadership to do this. So here we are. This has been developed. Paul and Carl have put this thing together. And now we have an advisory board. You heard about them. The advisory board met a couple of weeks ago and went through the PVL. The PVL is either out now or it's going to be out very quickly for the director. And so we're in the process. We're now moving. The goal is to focus on very specific targeted areas. We have some here: physical sciences, agriculture, medical devices, computer sciences, pharma, and others will be identified. And the way we do that is we use a model which is a lead mentor in residence. And these are, and Lee Kagan can tell you more about the ideal job description for these individuals. They know how to start companies. They know what the commercial sector is looking for, and they also are well connected to capital. And these are individuals who will be 50% time on this campus that will really nurture these products. See, it's green. They're going to help grow these products here on campus and help grow these targeted areas. So it's a targeted technology. This is not a grants program. It's not something where people write grants in the traditional format. It's targeted technology, finding technology that has potential value. And it's a collaborative arrangement between D2P and these inventors, whether they're faculty, staff, or students, to put together a program which will move this technology forward. And it's going to leverage our existing resources. We're in good shape because now we have some core resources on campus, such as even the Entrepreneur Boot Camp was very important. And if we didn't have these resources right now, it would be much more difficult to do this. And house calls, I'm glad I'm not. Lee Kagan is probably one of those guys. Every time I email him, any time of the day, I get an email back. So I guess that's going to be it, right, Lee? It's going to be, people are going to be responsive. The mentors in residence will have accounting skills so we can do pro forma financials. All of this will be done on campus in generating these particular relationships. Ideally, if we're going to have startups that roll off this campus, wouldn't it be better if they had a business plan that could actually be executed? Instead of rolling a company out and spending 2 years trying to develop a business plan, well, maybe you don't even know what your market is. I've actually done that before. It doesn't work well. It adds about 4 years onto your timeline. Channels through regulatory, a path to revenue, assembled team leadership. We anticipate these innovators that are part of the innovation on campus are going to turn into the chief technical officers, the chief scientific officer. They're going to connect with the people in the WAY program from business. And this is going to be something where we can actually grow leadership and begin to have people connected very early in the business climate. And ideally, immediately have access to capital and down the road be able to attract venture funding. So with that, I want to ask the Chancellor Blank to come back up and introduce our founders.
So this is just the launch, but it's taken a lot of work. And whenever you get to a point like this, you always need to celebrate a little bit. So I'm going to ask Paul DeLuca and Carl Gabranson to come up. And we want to thank them and honor them for their work of getting us here. We have a lovely glass teardrop.
It's a flame. It's a flame.
A flame, I'm sorry, a lovely glass flame.
I was worried
Tears of pain.
I know, I was saying, I don't know. Anyway, this is indeed a statement of appreciation and thanks for everything that you have done and everything that I know both of you are going to do on this project. So, Carl,
Thank you very much.
to you, and Paul.
Embarrassing.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You have to go back to work. That's the two guys that just came up, if y'all didn't see them.
I told you I had hair. Certainly unwarranted and certainly unneeded, but certainly deeply appreciated. You probably have a lot of questions, but before we get to any kind of question possibility, I want to introduce our final speaker, Rock Mackey. Rock and I have the same scientific genealogy. We're colleagues in the same department. There's a dramatic difference in our thought processes. I never came up with anything that anyone would want to patent or license. He only came up with things that people want to patent and license. He's been enormously successful and a strategic future thinker, and a pleasure for me to introduce. Rock?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is congratulations. This is a wonderful day. In fact, this is probably the most important thing that's happened to the campus in terms of tech transfer since the formation of WARF. WARF is great. WARF is excellent in terms of taking in technology and finding licenses for it. Has done a great job of pioneering starting up companies, including one company of mine that you might have heard about. The principle behind tech transfer, though, is broader, and so I think clearly D2P is broader. Is going to go out and scout technology. Will incubate it so that when a company can be formed and then leave the program, it's ready to leave the program. It will be successful in getting funding. What I want to talk to you about for a couple of minutes is a sister organization. It's a group of faculty and staff that have formed a consortium of entrepreneurs to provide advocacy both to the university, to the University of Wisconsin, but as well as the sister not-for-profit organizations surrounding the University of Wisconsin, WARF, the foundation, the Medical Foundation, Mortgage, and the Alumni Association. So in fact, we need to have a voice of faculty and staff and students promoting entrepreneurship on this campus. And so about a year ago, we started thinking about it. We had a steering committee. In fact, Mark Cook is on the steering committee for this program. And so it's turned out to be, as we researched, really the only one in the country, the only association of entrepreneurs inside a university that's advocating for entrepreneurship. So like WARF, I think it has the possibility of pioneering, having a spirit amongst the university community to promote entrepreneurship. It's broad in terms of faculty representation. It includes not just the sciences, but we've reached out to the arts and humanities. And it turns out that the most entrepreneurial sector of this campus is the arts. The arts. Now, why is that? Well, it's probably because we don't pay them enough for them not to be entrepreneurial. But in fact, it's the society who wants them, who wants their art, who wants their music, who are literally dragging it out from the campus. And so we have a lot to learn from that community as well. We have reached down as well to graduate students and postdocs. We feel that they should be have a voice. We haven't reached out to the undergraduates, although we will. And the reason for that is actually undergraduates are way ahead of us. There are several entrepreneur clubs on this campus that are promoting entrepreneurship amongst undergraduates. So we have more to learn from them than they would have to learn from us. But I think together we can promote the entrepreneurial climate on this campus, and I look forward to being informal governors, if you like, very informal governors of D2P, and I think D2P is destined for greatness. But I'll give you my first bit of advice, and that is don't expect to see results in 3 years. This is going to be at least a decade process. And in fact, Carl, how many years did it take WARF to become a bona fide success? And it probably took at least 15 before everyone realized we should have something like WARF. So have patience. This will take time, but I think this is going to be a wonderful program. Thanks.
Well, I hope this has provided you some knowledge base with respect to D2P. All the principals and involved people will be here for the reception and happy to spend a little time with you, answer any questions you might have, and get to know you. And I think you'll enjoy that, and we will certainly enjoy that very much. Things like this certainly take a lot of effort, but very often there are several unsung, unmentioned people in something like this. And during the conversation tonight, you heard about the 2-year process of socialization of this, creating these slides, driving this engine, we don't do that by ourselves. In this case, Maury Cotter and the staff from OQI were instrumental to making this happen, making things like this reception, frankly harassing me to get this done. So a shout out to them for their kind effort, and a shout out to you for joining us tonight. Enjoy. Thank you.